Hey guys, Chris and Jason here with another HMB podcast, a special one. We don't do that many book reviews, but when it's an important one, we definitely wanted to jump on camera and talk about this one, which frankly I think is the book of the year.
Agreed, me too.
It's called The Third Door by Alex Banayan. We're going to talk about what the book's about, the key takeaways, anything you can use in your own business. So a couple things. I originally came across this book because I was listening to Tim Ferriss' podcast, and Tim Ferriss shows up. He has a little part in this book, maybe not even a little, maybe bigger than that.
It's a big part.
But honestly, I think it's the book of the year, and I can't remember. I blew through this in a weekend, probably 36 hours over a Saturday and Sunday, and I can't remember the last time I read a book that fast and was that like excited about it and that like, it was. That's why I told everybody immediately. I started texting Jason, texting Alexa, our other friends.
Well, it was an easy book to fly through because it was storytelling the entire thing. I did it on audio because I only do audiobooks, and everyone else we had read this. You know, we hit up pretty much everyone we knew that is in our space, meaning like they're entrepreneurs, they're business owners, they're people that we know want to improve, self-improve. This was perfect for them, and half of them read it, half of them did audio, and every single person went through it in a week because it was just the easiest read or listen because the whole thing was storytelling and real life experiences that happened recently as well.
Yeah, so let's talk about a quick summary of what the book is about. So Alex Banayan's in college at the time when the book starts. He's maybe 19 years old. He went to USC or UCLA, college in LA, and he decided that he wasn't that into his studies. He wasn't super passionate about what he had going on in school, and what he really wanted to do was interview some of the top people in different professions and found out how they became so successful, how they became the top people. So we're talking about Bill Gates and Steven Spielberg, Warren Buffett, like the top of the top, right?
That's right.
Billionaires, philanthropists, like industrial, like the top people out there. So, okay, what he did first, which is pretty crazy, he needed money to fund this trip. He didn't have any money because he was a teenager in college. So he figured out how to get himself on The Price is Right, and he explains this all in great detail. It's a great story. He got himself on Price is Right, how to hack the system to make his chances of winning way, way higher, and he ended up winning a bunch of money. Yep. Or he won something that he could sell and get 40 or 50 grand to fund his.
He was trying to raise money for his mission, and his mission that our missions in life are always ongoing and live forever, but his mission was to interview all these top people and potentially write a book about it. Why don't you do a quick synopsis of what the third door actually means, and then we'll kind of go into some individual takeaways that we think were beneficial to each other.
That's a good idea. So the concept of the third door that Alex came up with is that there are 3 doors to get into any important place. I call it a nightclub. Yeah. I mean, not specifically a nightclub, but just for the purpose of the concept. There's the main door, where everybody waits in a line that's wrapping around the block. It's not the best option, right? There's a second door that is reserved for celebrities and billionaires and people like that just have access to whatever they want. Yep. And then there's a third door. And the third door is having a hookup, having an inside man, as he calls it, where you get access to special events, people, businesses, opportunities, investments, whatever it may be, by having a hookup, right?
See, that's funny because I think the third door is different. And I think whoever listens to it or reads it, there's a lot of different takeaways. So the way that I look at it as the third door is you do whatever the hell you have to do to get into that place or to that nightclub or to make that connection, whatever you need to do. And in the example that he used was, you hide behind the bouncer and then you run up the back alley, then you climb up a flight of stairs and then you jump in the window and then you pretty much portraying, you do whatever the heck you can. If you want something bad enough, you do whatever it takes in order to get into that. And that's the third door. It's the third door that's not announced, that doesn't really exist, and you do whatever you can to get inside there.
Yeah, and his stories about doing exactly that, the crazy things, might even call him desperate. I know he's like, after the book came out, has called some of these things like desperate attempts to reach these people, contact, have access to this stuff. The stories are just awesome. The stories are so entertaining. The principles are good. And you want to jump into some takeaways?
I mean, everything in every interview that he did, and every contact that he made was, he was on his kind of last ditch efforts. It was desperate in order to do that. Yeah. And some of the stuff that he did for someone who was between 18 and 25 or whatever at the time was ridiculous. Between hacking The Price is Right to, hooking up with Elliot Bisnow And because he was young, a little bit older than him, but similar in age, and trying to get him to be his mentor to help him get into this. And it was really interesting because a lot of the people that he met, it is actually very interesting. A lot of people that he's met obviously had connections that could potentially pick up the phone and get him into somewhere else. But it never ended up working like that. It was like, for instance, he tried to get in with Bill Gates. He couldn't get in with Bill Gates, so he's like, oh, Warren Buffett's his best friend. I'll get in with Warren Buffett. I know someone that works at Warren Buffett. But it never ended up working like that. Like you would think it'd be like
straight line. It was
exactly
never an easy road.
Like you think it'd be like, oh, cool. If I can get in with this person, then they'll just get me in with this person, and then get me in this person, get me in this person. It was never that easy. And obviously, some of that stuff helps. Tim Ferriss, after he harassed Tim Ferriss for like hundreds of emails and phone calls, he finally was getting to an interview. And don't get me wrong, like that was something that made it slightly easier for him to get to the next person, the next person, the next person. But it wasn't as easy as one may think of like, cool, now that I interviewed this person, hey, they're going to call their friend, and then I'll walk over to that office and interview that person. It wasn't that easy, and that's life, and that was, key takeaways. So, all right, I got a laundry list of kind of key takeaways, and we'll keep these kind of short to just a few of each one. One thing that I really enjoyed and liked was kind of a combination of the Pitbull and Tony Hsieh interviews. So one of the big Pitbull takeaways was, in his mind, he's always interning. He always wants to learn from the best, no matter what he's doing, and the best way to do that is intern, and free intern. So when he tried to get into the music industry, he didn't really know how to do that, so he was an intern. And when I say intern, it's like, I'm giving water, to the other actor, to the other artists on stage, and I'm sweeping the floors because I want to be around them. And he would do all of that stuff for free to try to get involved, make connections, learn the industry. And it was interesting because during the end of Alex's interview with Pitbull was telling him the story about how he wanted to get into something else, more advanced. And he was like, I'm just going to go intern for him and give them water. And he used that as an example, like just supply them water on set. And he was like, what are you talking about? Like, you're a humongous artist. You don't have to do that for somebody. Is like, that's how you do it. Like, that's how you learn. Like you if you want something bad enough, you're a fly on the freaking wall, and you hold their hand and do whatever they need you to do and listen to them and do it that way. And it was similar to the Tony Hsieh thing. He was able to shadow Tony Hsieh from Zappos for, I think it was 2 days. The game plan was just do it one day, and he ended up going 2 days, and he was the CEO for 2 days, technically. Tony let him be the CEO for 2 days. I mean, think about how much value you get from that if you're able to kind of be in those shoes.
Oh yeah, I mean just being in those meetings. I heard Gary Vee talk about some of that recently. Like, how much would you pay to be in this meeting with this person? Like, yeah. And he did that. that is a good.
Oh, I heard that this morning.
Yeah, it's just on social media. It's exactly what you just described. And also, what Pitbull, the recording artist, was talking about is that just keeping that beginner's mentality of like, I always have to learn, I always have to improve, even though he's at the top of the game.
Yep.
One good one I liked was when he was in the trailer outside of that, or like the
TED Talk trailer?
Outside of the TED Talk with the founder of TED, the guy who founded TED Talks. And he said two things, and I wrote down both of them, that he's learned along the way that he told Alex is, if you don't ask, you don't get, right? Like, you just got to take shots. And that's fine. I mean, the worst somebody can say is no, right? For whatever it is you might be looking for. And then the other one, which goes, right alongside the first one, is most things don't work out.
That's
just
right.
Accept that. You got to shoot to score. Michael Jordan missed however many thousands of shots in his career. Like, you got to shoot to score. You got to take shots. You got to take chances. And don't take it personally if it doesn't work out, because that's just the way things go.
Exactly. Yeah, and kind of the style, another takeaway I had was kind of his style of writing. I mean, we're obviously big marketers, and we do a lot of stuff with content and other kind of business things. And we do interviews as well. We haven't interviewed Bill Gates, but we've had some decent interviews for our niche, for our real estate investing space. But the whole storytelling and the interview style stuff is such great content in general. So as a business owner, it makes so much sense to just interview people inside your niche or outside your niche of just general business and general business. I mean, I can tell you that some of the top content that we produce, from what hearsay from people tell us, like, I love when you interviewed that girl from Shark Tank, or I love when you interviewed Tarek from Flip or Flop. Like, those were not just only like the most run pieces that we've had, meaning we've got the most eyeballs on them, but that was really fun to do because they're great people to interview, and it's very interesting. So it's a big thing to continue to do interviews inside our business. And obviously all the marketing and content stuff we do, you use that concept instead of kind of just like preaching or telling somebody. You do storytelling and you teach from storytelling. And we learned stuff from this book. The whole book was a story. Like, it wasn't like, it wasn't go do this or do this like a normal business book. It was, he told the story and you learn from that story. So you put that in your sales copy, you put that in your email copy, you put that in your landing pages. It goes a long way, and it's really, really easy to absorb that type of content.
Absolutely. Yeah, and let's expand a little more on the interviewing concept, because we found it to be a fantastic hack in business in general to make contact with people who otherwise might not pay the time of day, like Tarek, for example.
Yep.
When we hit him up, him and his people, and said that we wanted to interview him, he accepted.
Yeah.
Whereas if we just asked for a meeting or something like that, then the answer would probably be no, or no answer at all. And then we took that a little further, and we got some contributor spots on Inman.com, Entrepreneur.com a couple years ago, and did a series of posts on those big sites using interviews as the game plan, as the hook. And by doing that, we've made some high-level relationships that if we were not offering an interview, might not have gotten.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah, and very, very similar. Very, very similar to Alex's setup. And it was interesting because there's parts of the book that he was just so stuck on like one thing. And he talked to his friends and his mentor. He's like, "Yo, if you don't interview Warren Buffett, it's not the end of the world. Like, there's a lot of other big name people out there," and it was hard for him to get over that. And we won't spoil the whole book, but there's a whole section related to when another hack that he did. He hacked his way into the shareholders meeting in Omaha, and was able to ask Warren multiple questions, but from the audience. But that's a different story. Go ahead.
Since you mentioned that, it occurred to me, it wasn't on my list, but we don't want to remember that. Remember the conversation he was having with Elliot Bisnow when he was like, when is this whole thing going to snowball? When does the momentum happen? When does it all just start to take off?
Great one.
And and Elliot Bisnow was like, never.
Yep.
That's not the way it goes. Every day is a struggle. Every day is like, getting 1% closer.
Yep.
Every day you're pushing just a little bit forward. It doesn't just all of a sudden take off, right? Except for maybe in extremely rare cases. But for most business people, that's just not how it works. You just have to put in the work every single day, day in and day out, and stuff happens over time.
And
it doesn't just go on its own.
And we've talked about that all the time. And that's
I wondered that too. That's why it's good, because I've had those thoughts.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's good for other people to talk about it, but like, it's interesting because we're always like, hey, we're slow and steady wins the race. That's always been our business model. It's like over time we're just growing. Like, we've never been like, gigantic spikes. No. And that doesn't say that you can't have a gigantic spike, and that, eventually that potentially could happen, but it's, just baby steps, and you work on little things every day, and then you look back, 12, 13 years later, and it's big. I mean, just, or look back, a month or a year. I mean, think about where you were a year ago. It's the same situation. So, he also used the term A-team list. We've used the term Dream 100. So one of the concepts that we do inside our business is we try to approach some bigger, bigger industry experts, bigger, just people that we want to put on our dream list of doing business with, either them personally or with their book of business. He uses A-team lists, and I like that as well. You kind of have like your core list of people that you want to attack at all times to do business with, either to interview, do business with, something with, be affiliated with in some ways.
Yeah. Something else that stuck out to me in this book that I've seen personally recently and over the years, like when I was at the Super Bowl with a friend who's in sports industry this year, is that the people, when you get up to a certain level of business and success and other things, the things that they spend time doing, business and pleasure and all of that is completely blended together. Like, business guys go to the Super Bowl, like they might have direct, this is just an example, but they might have like direct business to do that week. It's also part fun. It's also just like what people do on that level. Like Elliot Bisnow's travel, for example, I couldn't tell if it was business or pleasure, and I'm assuming it's just both. It's like, hey, we're going to go to Barcelona tomorrow.
Yeah.
Why? I don't know, but he's going to make something out of it.
Yeah.
And having that approach to just ambition in general, right?
Yeah, I like that.
Right? That was an interesting one, that, hey, we're going from LA to Barcelona tomorrow. Why? I don't know.
Yeah.
But something successful will happen because
Yeah. And I mean, I think a big way to sum up all of this is the third door concept, like we talked about, if you want something bad enough, you'll figure out a way to get in it. You'll figure out a way to do it. Creating a goal, creating a mission, creating something that is really important to you. And some people could disagree that he didn't end up going. He dropped out of college. Some people will be like, yeah, it makes sense. And there's different things for everybody. But you got to define what those goals are. And he clearly had a picture of like written down. I mean, he went all in. He literally went all in. I mean, I've seen some of his pictures on social since then, in his library of books that he's read. And anytime he did an interview, like doing an interview is not easy. Like especially with a high, someone whose time is very valuable. Like you better not go in there and just waste time. And it's going to be it's going to be the last interview. Like he made a real big personal connection with all these people. And a lot of these times, these interviews completely were just like, friendly conversations back and forth about, his father who had cancer and things like that. And that was like, that's how you got the meaningful content, and not just like, cool, I'm here with my note card and okay, what's the answer to this question? What's the answer to this question? And another crazy story. He used to have breakfast with Larry King every morning.
They became friends.
And one of the things Larry always talked to him is he wanted to interview Larry King because he wanted to know how to interview people, and why not interview the best? And he said, be yourself. You can't do what I do. You can't do what Barbara Walters does. You can't do what this person does. Right. Be yourself, and that has to go with a lot of stuff. It has to go with defining what your mission and figuring out what your goals are. Being yourself. If none of those things if you're doing something for somebody else, or if you don't know what your mission are, or if you're trying to be somebody who you're not, like we're not going to be Gary Vee. We're not going to be Alex Banayan. Like we know who we are. And things change and you learn from it, but like figure out who you are and then map your goals and your desires based off of that, and do the baby steps every single day and you'll hit them.
Yeah. A couple things on, to tag team on that is one of the impressive parts about it was not only that he achieved what he was trying to and got access to these people and learned from them, is that the relationships that came from it. Like he has formed some really, really important relationships that came through his mission of just learning from these people. And like Jason was saying, you don't have to have Alex's goals. And that was the first thing I said when I recommended the book. I'm like, don't think about us trying to do what he's doing, because we don't have those goals. Like we don't have goals of being a best-selling author and keynotes on big stages. It's just not our goals. But if you take the third door concepts and apply it to our world, in the world of lending and everything else that we do, that's where the rubber meets the road, right? Like that's where you can apply these concepts to your own success. And that was like the really, really exciting takeaway for me, and why I was so pumped up, and why I'm still looking at like this, the notes that I made while I was reading the book have been on my second screen every day. Like I open it up and it's there and I go back to it. So it's just really cool. Book of the year, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, so if you should go check out the book. It's called The Third Door, Alex Banayan. One thing Chris and I are going to obviously, contribute to it is, share it with as many people as we know. We want to make sure everyone knows about it. I mean, we've told pretty much every single person that we think, would really benefit from it, that we've run across, be like, go read this book. I promise you're going to get value out of it. And we're going to kind of implement some of the things. We've put a list of call to actions of individual things that we want to work on and key takeaways that we've learned from this. And we're going to continue to implement them. And, I think it'll be a good thing. So you should definitely check out the book. It's certainly a good one. And, in the future, hopefully he has another mission. He hopefully has another book that comes out, because the style that he writes in order to read it or listen to it is absolutely phenomenal. And the stories are just great. And all along, it's just a 10 out of a 10.
Good stuff. Enjoy, guys. See you next time.